Talk Radio's political editor, Ross Kempsell, who's been out and about with the Liberal Democrats for the week. Good morning to you, Ross.
Good morning, Julia.
Have you had a fun week?
I've had an interesting week.
You've had an interesting week. We've had an interesting week. Okay, so this speech that Vince Cable's going to be making... We had this big keynote speech from Gina Miller yesterday, which the first line basically was, "I'm not a Liberal Democrat and I don't want to lead you," which a lot of people felt was a little bit of an embarrassment for the party. But I have to say, I'm not entirely sure that Vince Cable's comments about Brexiteers is going to go down very well. It's hardly winning over hearts and minds, is it?
Well, just cast your mind back, Julia, to this time 2 weeks ago, almost exactly, when Vince Cable gave a major speech in London, intended to trail party conference, saying that he was going to transform the Liberal Democrats into a mass movement organisation. They were not going to be a kind of political party of old anymore. He told Talk Radio in an interview at that speech that he wanted to see 1 million people join a Liberal Democrat movement. And now he is grabbing headlines by resorting to colourful metaphors, relying on, as you say, this phrase, the erotic spasm. Now, this is likely to be the last speech that Vince Cable will deliver to Lib Dem conference as leader. We know that he plans to step down. And as you said, some of the primary leadership candidates, or those who have been talked about to replace him, have actually ruled themselves out this week. So yesterday, Gina Miller stole really the entire media coverage of the day by coming onto the Liberal Democrats' own stage and telling the party that she didn't want to lead them. She instead wanted to be their friend. Yesterday at a major fringe, perhaps the busiest fringe, Nick Clegg, of course, former Lib Dem leader, he said that he wasn't going to be the British Macron. He did not want to lead a centrist movement in the UK. So really this conference was teed up as reigniting the Lib Dems, as relaunching them. But in reality, all I've heard really is people ruling themselves out of that project.
Thank you very much indeed, Ross Kempsell, Talk Radio's political editor. Let's talk now then to Liberal Democrat MP Sir Ed Davey, who joins us now. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Julia.
Good morning. Are you a little bit shocked? I think most of us are a bit shocked about these words from Vince Cable describing Brexiteers getting an erotic spasm from the thought of leaving the EU.
Julia, I'm surprised you're shocked. Vince Cable has a fantastic record of grabbing headlines with colourful phrases. That's what he does. And if you actually read the speech, he's not talking about Leave voters. He's talking about Jacob Rees-Mogg and the hard Brexiteers and the Tory backbenchers. That's who he's talking about, let's be clear. And essentially he's saying these people are putting their ideology above the best interests of the British people. The Liberal Democrats want to give the people a vote on the deal. That's our position. But at least we have something in common with some of the soft Brexiteers. We do want to put the interests of Britain first. And I think Vince is having a pop at those people who don't.
In terms of what's going to be people coming away from your conference believing that the Liberal Democrats stand for, pretty much all we've heard so far is you want to have this second referendum, the so-called people's vote. I call it a loser's vote because no one who was on the winning side wants to have this vote. Is that the only Liberal Democrat policy these days?
As you know, Julia, Liberal Democrats have policies on very many things. It's just that maybe not all of them being reported. Let me tell you about some of the things that have gone through this conference. We've got fantastic policies on education, wanting to invest in our schools, deal with the teacher shortages, for example, which is really hitting a lot of primary and secondary schools across the country. We want to make sure there's money available for health and social care, which are dramatically under pressure. And in my own area, policing, I've been arguing we need to have more investment in our police. They're being cut back dramatically by the Tories. We're seeing rising violent crime. We have to tackle those issues. So Liberal Democrats are talking about the bread and butter issues, but obviously Brexit is the issue at the moment. And of course, we're putting our winner's vote in the headlines.
But isn't the problem that actually what you want to do in terms of Brexit, i.e. not Brexit, have a second referendum, or third as some would say, is actually going to delay the process, more uncertainty, more problems for the British economy, and dragging this divisive debate on even further, whereas we could have just put this behind us back in 2016, had the vote, accepted the vote. If parties like yours said, yeah, we accept that, we could have all moved forward, united as a country, got the best deal, and we could be done and dusted by now. And then we could be focusing on education, on health, on housing, on transport.
Julia, it's the Brexit conservatives, the hardline Brexiteers who delayed this.
What have they done to delay this?
Hold on, let me finish. No one was told in the 2016 referendum that Brexit would take so long, it would be so costly, it would be so complicated. And it's been the arguments in the Conservative Party in particular, the massive divisions you've seen, even in the Cabinet, with people like Boris Johnson, David Davis resigning because they don't agree, that's delayed all this, that's created all these problems.
No, but you blame the Tory. No, I completely agree that it's been the infighting of the Tory Party, but it hasn't been the Tory Eurosceptics.
Well, I think it has.
What have they done to delay this? They've said get on and trigger Article 50. They've said get on and do a deal.
The Tory Eurosceptics can't agree amongst themselves. Let's remember they were challenged to put forward their alternative to the Chequers plan and haven't been able to do that. I mean, they are massively divided, even among the hard Brexiteers.
To be fair, Remainers are pretty divided as well. I mean, there are some Remainers who think the EU is the most wonderful thing in the world, and there's some who don't like it at all but think it's better than the alternative.
Julia, people are shocked that the Conservatives who wanted this can't agree amongst themselves.
I agree.
And I think British people deserve a lot better from the Conservative Brexiteers. They wanted this for years. They pushed the referendum. They won the vote narrowly. And even 2 years later, with the country going down the pan, we're losing investment.
We're going down the pan?
Yes, we're losing investment.
We've got a growing economy. We've got the lowest unemployment in decades, and you're saying we're going down the pan.
To other countries, they're going. Just look at the facts.
Okay, here's a fact: 10% unemployment rate in France, 4% in the UK, and you're saying we're going down the pan.
No, you let me deal with that issue because you're absolutely right.
Oh, well, a fact.
Well, let me just deal with it. Employment is low in this country. Unfortunately, a lot of the jobs that are being created are very low-wage jobs.
Well, that is always the case in a high employment economy.
I get a chance to
No, but you're stating an obvious fact. Of course, the marginal people who are newly taken on in jobs don't earn the top wages. Everyone knows that.
If you go to Germany and France, you'll see a lot of the new jobs are high-value jobs. And what I'm really worried about, what Liberal Democrats want, is a country where people are paid properly, where there are good jobs, and we're not getting that. And we're seeing for the future the investment in high-tech going abroad, the investment in manufacturing going abroad. That's what should really worry people.
There's also a lot of investment coming to this country. For every company that has said, "Oh, we're going to go abroad because of Brexit," we've seen another company saying, "Oh, we're going to invest despite Brexit. We're not bothered by it."
In the past, we used to attract more foreign direct investment than any country in Europe. That's now not the case. That's just a fact. And that should be really worrying people who want to see their families get on, want to see our country prosper, and want to see people with really well-paid jobs. And I'm afraid the seeds of a real decline of prosperity are being sown. And I worry about that. And I seriously worry about Britain's ability to influence the rest of the world when we're just shouting across the channel. And what we're simply saying is, when a deal is done, we don't want to delay the process, but we've got to do the deal. And once the deal is done, we put that to the British people. Is that so unreasonable?
Well, no. When was, out of interest, when was the last time?
2016, we didn't know what Brexit meant because we hadn't the deal.
Well, I knew what Brexit meant.
All we are saying now is once we know what Brexit is, and we still don't, when we know what Brexit is, when the deal has been done, when all this shouting is finished, and we actually say this is the deal, let's put that to the British people.
OK, this is the thing. OK, when was the last time that the British people were asked to have a national referendum on the outcome of a trade deal? I can't recall that ever happening.
It's not just a trade deal. I mean, I deal with home affairs issues. It's about how we're going to deal with the most wicked people in our world. You know, I've been to The Hague and seen Europol and Eurojust and the impact of the European arrest warrant, enabling us to coordinate with 27 other countries. So we bring murderers, drug traffickers, rapists.
And we also see British citizens being extradited to other countries which don't have a proper rule of law.
I'll finish my sentence in a minute without being interrupted. And, you know, Europe, the deal is about how we're going to work with them on security. It's going to be how about we're going to work with them on agriculture, on fishing, on the environment. It's not just a trade deal. It's about a whole way of we cooperate with our closest neighbours. We're in a street, right? It's called Europe. We can't move from that street because you can't take the British Isles and move it to the rest of the world. We're in that street. And in Brexit, we've gone out and we've said to the rest of our neighbours, sorry, guys, I know we're been in this nice club before, and we're still going to be in the same street, but we don't want to be part of you, but we're going to have a little agreement about everything that goes on in our community. That is what Brexit is about. And it's not just about trade.
Okay. All right, you've said that. Sir Ed Davey...
We are in Europe.
Sir Ed, I have to interrupt you because you don't stop unless I interrupt you. The thing is, you're very, very keen on giving the people a say. But the reality is, for all the decades when people said, we're not quite happy about the fact that you're handing over more of our constitutional powers and in so many different areas to the EU, you didn't want us to have a say then. You didn't want us to have a say when you were in government, in the 2010 coalition government, you prevented there from being a referendum. You didn't want us to have a say. And now you've lost a vote. Oh, now you feel really strongly about having a referendum. You've got to understand why a lot of the public are cynical.
Well, because that what you just said on Friday was just not true. We passed a piece of legislation in the House of Commons which said if there was a move of sovereignty to the EU from Britain, there should be a referendum.
That was after there'd been a massive transfer of sovereignty already.
So we passed legislation to enable British people to have votes if there was further transfer of sovereignty.
After you'd already transferred huge amounts of British sovereignty to Brussels. After the fact.
Well, I have to say that there has been acts of parliament and elections all the way through that.
But not referendums.
And when you were asking how we reacted to people who were getting worried about this, we reacted by creating a framework to do the very thing you just said.
Let me ask you one final question. The front page of The Guardian today, we're actually asking this on Twitter, asking people what they think of this. The British government is going to have to experience its, in the words of a senior EU diplomat, the Guardian is claiming, its darkest hour and stare into the abyss of a no-deal Brexit before it caves in to more Brussels demands on the deal, basically going further than Chequers. But the key thing there is this phrase, darkest hour. Do you think that the Brussels bureaucrats are expecting us to give more concessions than we've already given?
Well, it depends what the Prime Minister, how she plays her hand. I mean, some of us think that the Chequers Agreement is not very easy to work because she makes a distinction, which is very difficult in the modern economy, between goods and services. So many of your listeners might well be in manufacturing, producing goods, but they'll also be in the service trade that's directly linked to that manufacturer. And the way modern business works is that goods and services go together. And that basic economic fact of businesses, which your listeners will know day in, day out, is not realised in the Chequers Agreement.
Or by the EU at all, because the EU doesn't have a single market in services yet, does it?
Yes, well, it basically does. I mean, let me talk about the single market, because I actually used to represent the country.
I know you did.
On the European Council that looked at the single market, and I pushed very hard to extend the single market in services.
Yeah, because we didn't have it.
I dealt with 2 years negotiation, and one saw where the single market in services was already thriving and going well. Many in British interests, actually, both in financial services, professional services, and so on. And we also saw where the gaps were. For example, in some of the new businesses which people hadn't dealt with in the past, like digital. And I was involved in negotiations to make sure that Britain got the best deal in the single market on things like digital. And we were doing really, really well, actually.
So we should have stayed in.
What my concern is that the EU is going to say, look, you can't do this division in the Chequers Agreement. It doesn't make sense. It just doesn't work in modern business.
Okay.